What was your favorite song to play with Luther Vandross?
Any Love, I think, was my favorite. I ended up recording a version of that song. Nat Adderley Jr., he was the one who introduced me to Luther because he and Luther were very tight. He had a gig with me and he canceled almost at the last minute. He said, "This friend of mine is a background singer in New York. Man, he's made me promise that when he got his thing together, got his record contract, that I would be there and I would be his MD, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, wow, man, he must be really good. Yeah, his name is Luther.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Jabari Warfield here at Jazz and Other Vibes. Thank you for checking out the podcast. In just a minute, we're going to speak to the legendary Mr. Kirk Whalum and talk about Epic Cool. As a matter of fact, I had to get the shirt on just to make sure that I address that particular issue. Be sure to join me for Jazz and Other Vibes on KAZI 88.7 FM on alternate Wednesdays between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Central Time. You can also check out Mixcloud.com. That's where I have all my podcasts as well as my YouTube channel for all things smooth jazz and R&B from today and back in the day. Ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely blessed to have this gentleman on. I've known him, followed him for a number of years, and he is definitely a legend in the business. And it's good to be able to reconnect with him after quite some time. Got a new release out, and the title of the release basically describes him. He is epic and he is cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kirk Whalum's in the building. How are you, sir?
Hey, great, Jabari. Thank you, man. I appreciate the invitation. It's lovely to be thought of. I'm here in my studio here in Memphis. And I got to tell you, Austin, it's a lot of I left my heart in Austin, Texas. But big shout out right at the beginning of my Austin family, the Wicks family, Olivet Baptist there on the east side of Austin, and Ted, TJ, Monica, and Antonio, my little grandkids, as it were. Just want to make sure to send some love to my family there, man.
Very cool. Yeah, you got folks here, man, because you started out in Austin, right? Or started part of your career in Austin.
It was, chapter two. Chapter one was me in Houston going to Texas Southern and then starting to work on the local scene. And from that point, got the natural progression of things. We got an invitation to open a jazz club there on 6th Street called Baxter's.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was such a very big deal for us because, it was, our window into the greater world of music, of jazz, of performance, of making a living doing this.
Did you ever think you were going to be where you are now in terms of music, in terms of the people you've been blessed to work with? Because you've worked with some huge names, man.
Well, I mean, I'll say that I was just naive enough to think that what I had and I knew God had given it to me, that what I had was going to take me, on, at that time, I probably thought I was going to go straight to the top, like you don't really have a good perspective of what it means. It's nonlinear, what it means to make a success of doing this. Right. But I did, I had definitely begun to, shoot for the moon. And yeah, Austin was like, a school for me, man. Like learning one thing in particular, learning how to be a good host. Like when people come in, a lot of times they're walking off the streets, they don't know who you are at all. And yet, yeah, there you are, with the opportunity to make fans. And so it's not just about playing, it's about being a good host, like an MC. And so all those are things that I learned and more there on 6th Street in Austin.
Now, Bob James was kind of the first, I guess, launching pad at some point, getting into the whole jazz
Yes.
genre, working with Bob?
Yes. Into the, greater world of jazz. I opened a concert for him in Houston while we were still there playing at Cody's or one of those places, and little did I know, man, that that was going to be my launch pad. That Bob James, um, basically, he took me on. I opened a concert, according to him. The audience peaked before he got on stage, and that is not good. Even now, like I'm sensitive to that as an artist, right? Like, wait a minute, the opening act is getting house. So what do we do now? So what he said, what he did was he hired me. So, I started touring with him,
Right.
post haste, and so that never happened again. We were together. Eventually did a duet record with him called Join at the Hip, but I toured
Right.
with Bob for 20 something years, man. I just played with him about, I guess 3 months ago now on the jazz cruise, on the Smooth Jazz Cruise. And yeah, that was the beginning, man.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's jump a little bit before we talk about Epic Cool. How has the music business changed for you? How have you seen music change? How it's been accepted? We know, of course, we used to buy vinyl and cassettes in a different format. Now, of course, it gets streamed. Sounds have changed, tastes have changed. We got a new generation. How have things changed for you?
Well, I mean, a lot has changed. They say change is the only non-variable. That it's going to happen. One big thing was that, man, it was all about getting a record contract. To get a recording contract was, such a goal. And part of me thought that, well, once that happens, I'm in, and the rest is just, letting it play out. But I found out differently. I found out that it really is more about what I talked about earlier, and that is establishing and maintaining that connection with the audience, with, one audience member at a time, be that live or, through recordings. And so, yeah, the recording industry part of it has always been problematic, and filled with pitfalls. In fact, my first record contract, it just went away. Like
Wow.
they didn't even put the record out. And with Arista Records back in the day when Kenny G had just started
Right.
with
Remember
them,
that?
and so I think they were trying to duplicate the test the water, see if we could do it again. And yeah, it didn't happen. And but it was such a big letdown. But again, now in retrospect, I see God was, showing me that really it's about trusting Him, about being really excellent at what you do, which has to do with preparation, practice. I have my instruments right here, man. When I'm done with this interview, I'll be practicing,
Right.
and that's what I did yesterday, and that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. So that hasn't changed. So all the things that have changed, CDs, well, let's go back. Vinyl at the time was it. And then that was cassettes, and then 8-track blah blah cassettes, and then CDs and everything. But all that has gone away, and now it's about what it has always been about, and that's that connection, that personal connection.
Let's jump to Epic Cool. Let's talk about Epic Cool. This is I saw that, and my daughter saw it too. My daughter's 10 years old, and I think you probably appreciate this. She's 10 years old, gave her life to Christ at 9, asked to be baptized, and so
Wow.
now everybody that she sees me associate with, she asks me if they love God.
Yeah. So, what's her name?
Her name is Ava.
Ava. I love that name. So, wow. Congratulations, man, and
Thank
blessings
you.
to little Ava. And that same thing happened with my youngest son. I was just texting him, Evan, who is now 37. When he was 5, man, I was preaching a sermon at church we went to in South Pasadena, California, and
Hmm.
he at the end of the sermon walked down and asked to be, that Christ would come into his heart. And so,
Wow.
it is back to the same word, non-linear, when it comes to a person's spiritual path. It's just like music; it's non-linear, and at this point, Evan is on another page, right? But I am so grateful for that memory.
It's a beautiful thing to see, man. It touches your heart because after that they're forever changed. They're never going to be the same, and now they've got a direction when things get tough, and someone to thank when things are going well.
Yes, yes, agreed, agreed, brother.
It's a beautiful thing. What are your kids doing these days? Because I remember one of your kids was playing with I think with Kelly Clarkson or going on tour with some folks.
So, our son Kyle played with Kelly Clarkson from the Nashville days. That's when he got with her. He was living there, going to school, Belmont, and we had been living there for a season. And then, yeah, she got the show that moved them to L.A., her TV show, and he was doing that show I think for 3 years. So total of about 8 years with her, and then he started kind of moonlighting with Katy Perry because Katie had was doing a residency at one of the casinos in Vegas, and so Kyle would work during the week. It was perfect, man. He would work during the week with Kelly Clarkson, going to work like at 9 to 5,
Right, right.
in Burbank, playing on TV, and then on the weekends he was playing in Vegas with Katy Perry. So long
Wow.
story, they moved the Kelly Clarkson show to New York. And Kyle and Jamie have 3 kids, one of whom is autistic. And they were like, we are definitely not going to move her to New York.
Yeah.
And, it'd be great. It'd be different if she already knew you in New York, because for them, it's about change. And you
Right.
can't
Oh
just
yeah, big time.
change stuff like that.
Yeah, it's hard to deal with change.
Yeah. And then, man, Katy Perry said, wow, we would love to have you, And so now he's been with Katy for roughly 2 years. But he is headed back out right now. They're on this long tour, but he'll be in Australia for a month. And it just reminds me, man, of just touring with Whitney Houston. That was what it was like, having little kids at home and being just tearing yourself away from them to go out on the road. So I pray for him daily. But also, our nephew Kenneth is an amazing saxophonist. I think you guys may play his music.
Nice.
Kenneth
Okay.
Whalum, saxophonist, songwriter, singer. Kenneth Whalum, bad brother. His brother Cortland, our other nephew, is like a Broadway singer, does a lot of stuff. And then his other brother Cameron has been with Bruno Mars for I think 6 or 7 years, and plays with Silk Sonic. Plays
Wow.
trombone and
Wow.
sings.
Wow. Now, Bruno Mars is a bad boy. I got to give him his props, man. He really is tough.
Woo!
Yeah, he's a tough cat. Now,
Yes,
all
sir.
the kids have the first names are K. The first names start with K.
Almost. We started in that direction, man, and then we said, "Nah, that's enough of the K's," because my brothers and I are KKK, So I'm like, enough of that. No more K's. And so now
Nice.
we have the Courtney actually with a C, Kyle, Corey, and Evan, and then we
Okay.
have 7 grandkids now, man, and none of them are K's.
Wow. Right. Wow. Wow. Any possible musicians in that you see in them in the grandkids?
And the grandkids, yeah, we just went to the end of school year program for 2 of them here in Memphis, and our Perry, who is 8, played the marimba, in the program, and I'm like, I'm down with it, man. I mean, I never pushed my kids at all, the best of my ability, except affirming the music that I saw in Kyle. I never pushed them to do music,
Right.
frankly, because it's crazy, man. I mean, it's a wacky way to make a living.
And it can be a
Crazy.
tough business, I'm sure.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah. You had mentioned Whitney Houston and Luther. I just want to touch on them real quick. Whitney loved you? Loved you. I saw the 1997 show that you did. I think it was you and Ron Brown, and one other saxophone player. And you guys were in Whitney's band. It was an HBO special. And
Yep.
she just, you can tell when somebody loves somebody. Okay, just
Yeah.
they have an admiration. She seemed like she had such an admiration for you. What was it like working with her in terms of musicianship?
Well, I mean, goodness gracious, I remember long before I met her, long before I was gifted to work with her, I was asked in an interview similar to this in Houston, who are you trying to sound like? And, Coltrane, Cannonball, Sonny Stitt, whatever. I said, man, I want to sound like Whitney Houston. And the person kind of looked at me funny, like, really? I said, yeah,
Right.
man, the way she embodies the gospel roots that I grew up with, and the thing that I want to actually do with the instrument is to sing like that, to speak to people's hearts. And man, there is nobody like her, to this day. So when I read that article to her and it cracked her up, she's like, why would you want to sound like me? And I'm like, yeah, that's just the way it is. I knew that I had a certain power with her. Like, in other words, first of all, my nickname was Bishop, like, because I
Mm,
did a lot of most
yeah.
of the praying, before shows and anytime rehearsals. And also, I knew that I could play something, just one something that would affect the way she sang. Like, I could do something that rooted us both in this black gospel experience,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she would take off in a different direction. And so that was really, it was wonderful, but it was also, I was trying to be very judicious about it, because you can't always be on that pace, so you have to pick your spots. And she used to say, to all of us, if you feel it, play it. If you don't feel it, please don't play it.
So leave it alone. Leave it right where it is.
Yeah,
Right where it
less
is.
is more. I mean, it's all about that restraint. The great David Porter, one of my biggest mentors, right here in Memphis, producer, songwriter, Stax Records, Sam and Dave, the Emotions, etc. He is all about that, like that restrained emotion, where you don't give it all away, like you just a little bit, and so in that context, it's more powerful.
Gotcha, gotcha. I have a friend of mine who asked me to ask you, what was your favorite song to play with Luther Vandross?
That's awesome. Um, uh, Any Love, I think, was my favorite. I ended up recording a version of that song.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's just such a cool song. But Nat Adderley Jr. is my very good buddy. He played in my band once upon a time back in Texas. But Nat, of course, Nat Adderley's son, um, is roughly my age, and he was the one who introduced me to Luther, because he and Luther were very tight, and Luther basically planned around Nat. He's like, okay, if you can't do it, then I'm not going to do it.
Mm,
And then Nat wrote several of Luther's big hits. You can look that up, Nat Adderley
right,
Jr.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so that was the thing for me, was the door open from a friend to a friend,
Now,
And by the way, when it first happened, he had a gig with me that was very important to me, and he canceled almost at the last minute. And I'm like, no. He said, man, I know, I'm so sorry. He said, this friend of mine is a background singer in New York, back when I was living in New York. And man, he's made me promise that when he got his thing together, got his record contract, that I would be there and I would be his MD, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, man, he must be really good. Yeah, his name is Luther.
oh my God. Well, there it is.
Yeah.
Man, that's incredible. That is awesome. All right, so let's talk about Epic Cool. This I love the title because it describes you to a T, sir. Okay? I've met all kinds of people who have known you, who have seen you in concert, and they have nothing but good. I was talking to a friend of mine about 2 hours ago before we got to talking, and he said, "Man, Kirk Whalum is one of the greatest dudes, man." This is a great release, and you've got Greg Manning working on this one, and I love the track. Like the first four tracks, the Body Out and Crusaderation. Um, let's see, what's that? Pillow Talk and Epic Cool, great tracks. And then there's You and Sunday Morning, the last track on the bottom, and I was like, okay, that's it, that's it. That's it. Tell
Oh,
me about
wow.
that one. Tell me about that one first.
Thank you, man. So that is a Greg Manning, actually his Swiss name. He's Swiss. Greg Manning Wachter, Gregory Wachter.
Mhm.
He wrote that song, man, and I didn't do anything. I just played. It was actually kind of hard to play. It's funny, like, certain things, certain registers, certain phrasing is hard to pull off, on the saxophone. So I struggled with it, but man, I listen back to it now and I'm like, man, this song is killing. But I mean, roughly describes the whole record. Like, but Body Ya is a great example,
Yes.
except that we collaborated on that one where sent me this track and I just went crazy. I'm sitting over in the studio. I can't play fast enough, So basically, I wrote the melody. Same thing with Pillow Talk. I just wrote it as I played. I didn't, write it out or think it through or any of that. I just did what came to me. Although I will say on Body Ya, the first thing I heard was ba da 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 da. This little saxophone background part harmonies, right?
Right.
Ba da 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 da. I put that on first, and then I just played to it.
Yeah, Body Eye sounds like a little ode to Earth, Wind, and Fire. The ba da 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 body yeah.
Yes, yes, and I knew Maurice, and I was privileged to meet him through David Porter because he and David were thick as thieves, growing up as teenagers,
Right.
13, 14 years old, here in the Soulsville neighborhood of Memphis.
Wow.
Stax Records is right there, man, a corner of College and Macklemore and Memphis. And Maurice cut his teeth, man, right here, and that Body Out would most definitely, and that was Greg's doing, like adding that part, because of Greg, brother from Switzerland, he's still
Right.
connected with Stax,
Yeah, yeah. That well, man, it is a fantastic release. I love it. Trust me, you're getting a lot of radio love here in Austin, man. Because that's the first thing I saw Body Eye. I'm like, yep, I'm playing. As soon as it came out, as soon as I got my hands on it, I was playing it that night. Period.
Thank you, Jabari. Thank you, man.
Sure, you're welcome. You're welcome. Andrea Lisa, I wanted to talk about her real quick. What did you find special about her that you said, okay, we need to work together?
Right. So I was doing my project called Humanité, which, humanity is about collaborating with young artists from all over the globe as far as I could get, And I went to France, England, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Japan, etc. Right. Even Indonesia. And I recorded with these young artists. But I had met Andrea on a cruise ship. I was playing the jazz cruise, or one of those cruises, smooth jazz cruise, and her band was on the ship because those cruises that we do are charters. So when the charters happen, the cruise musicians, who are just working the cruise, doing shows, they get a break and they just sit there for a week. And so she came up to me in tears, really. She's like, "You are, I can't even put it in words, like you are that person for me, you know." And so I'm like, wow, well, we got to work together. And long story short, she came to Memphis. I didn't get to go to New Zealand, where she's from. She came to Memphis and we recorded one of her songs called Get Your Wings Up. From there, she started touring with me, which she still does. Now she's got her own dates, so I have to work in between her schedule. But, she wrote a song on the new record as well. On Epic Cool. So Andrea is a success story that is happening as we speak. Andrea Lisa, and I'm just so grateful to have just a small part of it.
Yeah, yeah. She has a great song on Epic Cool. I've heard it. It's beautiful. She's got a great voice, man, and plays great guitar. So I think it complements you guys complement each other very well in terms of musicianship, without question.
Thank you. Yeah. She reminds me of Minnie Riperton, man, her voice,
Mm,
but she's an amazing songwriter. That's the thing that you don't get a lot. So she can really play, right? So that kind of goes without saying. Like she's playing with me. I may not play that well, but I'm gonna surround myself with people who can really, really play,
yep.
right? And you can go through my band members and see that. So playing with me, she's not just chinking along, man. She is sure enough playing guitar, and the fact that she sings and writes songs is a bonus.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah. Well, there's an artist by the name of Her, Gabby Wilson. I don't know if you're familiar with her. Her name is Her.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, yeah. She was on. If you saw the Usher Super Bowl performance, she was the one playing guitar on
I know
there.
exactly who her is, man. I mean, yeah, that all the English goes out the window when you start discussing her. But I knew
Exactly.
exactly who her is, and I'm a big fan of her. And oh my goodness,
Yeah.
she is. Yeah,
Yeah,
same category of like she's got all of the goods, like songwriter, arranger, producer, and singer. Forget about it, man.
yeah, she's incredible. She said something in an interview. She said, "If I'm the best person in the room, then I'm in the wrong room."
I know that's right. I hadn't heard that, but I agree with her.
Yeah, most definitely. I would be I would be remiss if I didn't speak about our good friend Ron Brown.
Yes, sir.
彼の影響で毎週教会に行ってサックスを演奏しています。彼の影響で毎週聖書を勉強しています。彼の影響でこの楽器で神様を賛美しています。Please welcome Mr. Kirk Whalum.
I met Ron, worked with him for about 13, 14 years. And every time we went to a church, he went to do ministry in a church, he always mentioned how you, his family, of course, but he mentioned you specifically, that you prayed for him all the time and asked others to do the same.
Yeah, man, he struggled through a cocaine addiction, and it was devastating. But to be clear, man, I met Ron when I was playing up at the rooftop in Houston, and Ron was touring, still living in Houston. Ron was living in LA touring with Al Jarreau,
Right.
and they all came by the club, and a lot of them sat in with us, and Ron and I became close then. But when he was the one, when I moved to LA, I called him. I said, man, I'm coming out there to do a session with Larry Carlton. And he was like, oh no, you coming out here to live. I'm gonna see to that, basically. And sure enough, he picked me up after I was done working, and he took me around Pasadena up to the highest point, overlooking the Rose Bowl. And he's like, no, man, you need to live here. He said, because what you're doing, you're being held back by not living out here. And he was right. And so I just like he talks about me, I owe him that, because he was right. The things took off for me once I moved up. Of course, not right away. Like I was playing with a Tina Turner impersonator at the Ramada, when I first got out there after being a band leader. But eventually, he was right. I started playing on sessions. Lord God, I played on hundreds of recording sessions, and Whitney Houston. All that happened because I had moved to LA.
What a
Yeah,
great
what
person.
they say, you're never gone if people are talking about you. And I still have Ron's album up over here. Uh, I look at him and I kind of talk to him. I was like, man, you are my guy. And his family, Barbara and the girls, I mean, they're just so precious to us. But yes, Ron and I went through a lot together, and he was the epitome of a serious musician who was all about helping other people.
Yeah, it's a he helped me. We had many conversations in Starbucks and over at my mom's house and out at his house, and talked about how God has changed his life, and that his whole perspective on family and perspective on even his music. I think he got offered a chance to tour with Babyface and he turned it down. And for me, I was like, you sure about that, bro?
Yeah.
But he said no. I said Babyface, I love him, he's great, but he did not save my soul. God saved my soul, and I gotta stay on that path.
Yes,
So
sir.
it was
I
deep.
know that's right.
Yeah.
I love that quote.
Yeah, so yeah, it's good stuff. Really, really good, and I stick with that. That goes through my head, and I say, okay, yeah, I see where your focus is, and I acknowledge it for sure. Um,
Yes.
let's talk about cyberspace before we let you go, because you and Ruby are doing some great things on YouTube. You've got dudes with hats, Bible in your ear. You're all over. Talk about the online stuff you've got going.
Sure. So the Bible in Your Ear is a podcast that I started, when probably 16 years ago, before we moved back home to Memphis. I wanted something to listen to when I was out doing my walk, my jog, or whatever. I want to listen to the Bible, and I'm like, I found this podcast of a guy reading through the Bible, and it really, really helped me. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do that too. And so I started it, so every day you can listen to me reading through the Scripture. At the end of the year, the Bible in your ear. You've heard the whole Bible, 365 lessons. And that podcast has like 1.5 million subscribers now.
Nice.
And, people in other languages. Thank you. People, in other countries who want to learn English, and people curious about the Bible and that type of thing. Yeah. And so when the pandemic happened, I'm sitting here in the studio and going like, well, homie, you got to figure something out.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go in my closet and start getting my outfits that I would have been wearing on stage, and I'm gonna sit right here and play my horn. And we call that dude with hats. And yeah, so we're always trying to come up with something, another way to reach out. I just recently did one that people are now responding to very well, called hashtag Pillow Talk Challenge.
Yes, I
And
saw
people,
that. I saw that. That's cool.
yes, a lot of singers, saxophone players, trumpet players, trombone, they'll play along with me. And it's so cool, man. I just love, doing these collaborations online.
Exactly. Oh, what a great way to connect with folks, man. I have seen that. It is absolutely cool. Well, brother, I know you got to run, but I appreciate your time so much. Thank you. Last question. You're hitting the road anytime soon?
Like we're still out here doing it, man. I would love to come to Austin at some point soon. So I'm hoping
Yes.
that, we can get some of your fans to just demand that one of those local promoters bring Kirk Whalum, because they said, well, why don't you come to Austin? I'm like, I can answer that. I have to be invited by a promoter, so
Yes, sir.
I sneak in a lot just to see my kids. Like I said, Ted, TJ, Antonio, Monica, Wicks. But, as far as playing is concerned, I need you guys.
Okay, cool, cool. I'll get the word out, bro. Trust and believe that.
Thank you so much, Jabari.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. kirkwhalum.com, the website, and also on Instagram as well, under Kirk Whalum, correct?
That's correct.
Very good, very good. My brother, I am so thankful, and I appreciate your time, man. And we will talk to you at some point, either this year or early next. We got to make it happen, though. We're going to get you here to Austin for sure.
Thank you, brother.
Take care.
God bless.